What's going on, guys? Jordan the Wolf here. I'm proudly able to present the third installment of the What If. What if Krillin got the buff form? I'm really happy to touch onto this subject once again, as I don't know, I felt like a little bit mundane, and I thought there was enough support, but I decided, you know what the heck, I'll give it another chance. So, anyways, when we last left off, the Z Fighters had encountered the Saiyans, and while we did have a lot of casualties, just like the original, one notable exception was Piccolo, who was able to live in this scenario. As well, another exception in the scenario was in the fact Vegeta did not escape this time. Rather, Krillin and Master Roshi, working together, had used the Mafuba and managed to seal the Saiyan Prince away. There would be a lot of ramifications because of this. However, now the crew are at the hospital healing up, and then now there's a crew heading off to Namek. However, I want to make a small retcon. Krillin stays in the hospital with Goku, and the person who goes with Bulma and Gohan will actually be Piccolo. I'm giving the reasoning that he wants to see Namek for the first time and let him explore it, as these are his people, and this would be a good learning experience to learn about where did he and Kami come from originally. So Bulma, Gohan, and Piccolo were off to Namek. There would also be some small changes throughout the story, such as, for instance, Kui from Frieza forces would not be coming to Namek, as in the original, he followed Vegeta to planet Namek, so he would not be there. Our crew lands on Namek, settle down, make base camp, then head off, as they would encounter the village, just like the original canon. They would see Dodoria, Zarbon, and Frieza threatening the Namekians. However, unlike the original, as the three Namekian warriors come down, they would all be on the brink of death, laying on the ground, as opposed to being fully dead. Piccolo and Gohan would make their move, just as Dende was about to be blasted, as Piccolo gathered up the three wounded warriors, and Gohan managed to grab both Dende and Cargo, racing off, which would ensue a chase from Dodoria, who'd be tracking them, as Piccolo and Gohan fled for their lives from the village, trying to escape. Unlike in canon, they don't have Krillin there to do a solar flare. However, Piccolo would briefly do a dropping of the Namekian warriors, as he then fires off a great yellow blast to blind Dodoria and keep him busy. They would then hide their powers as they fled into a nearby cave to elude capture. Dodoria would obviously be quite pissed off, at the say the very least, unable to capture the runaways, as he would then have to report back to Frieza, as he would have to return back to the group with Zarbon and Frieza, quite disappointed in Dodoria for unable to finish the job. Meanwhile, our heroes would be talking to the Namekian warriors and Cargo and Dende when a proposition had occurred. The Namekian warriors refused to die, and just as they laid there, as they then offered Piccolo an opportunity, Namekian fusion. Now, unlike the original canon, how Nail and Piccolo fuse, this is not going to be as potent, to say the very least, but it will still prove somewhat worth it. Bringing up the forbidden technique, the three would then be fused into Piccolo. Now, how potent exactly would the fusion be? Well, to attribute it, they're all dying currently. They're far weaker than Nail and Piccolo. So, to give a rough estimate, I will say in total, they will all attribute a 4.5 times multiplier. So, 4,200 to 4,200 times 4.5. Piccolo will now be jumped up to 18,900. Truly astonished Piccolo, as this would put him just above where Vegeta was in the Saiyan Saga. Not to mention, the crew would actually be more successful than the original canon, as they actually found the village where Vegeta had slaughtered in the canon, and actually got an extra Dragon Ball as compared to the original. Having said this, they would go on a suggestion by Dende to head to Lord Guru's to get advice as well as the next Dragon Ball. So Dende, Gohan, and Piccolo all departed to Guru's. Once they arrived, our heroes would be confronted by the guard of the Guardian, Nail, as he stood outside as they approached. Dende would speak upon their behalf, explain the situation about Frieza, how Gohan and Piccolo saved him and his brother Cargo, and how they're collecting the Dragon Balls, so Frieza wouldn't be able to. Lord Guru would beckon from inside, telling Nail to let the travelers come inside. they would all be fascinated meeting the Grand Guru. As he would approach them and talk to them, he would read their minds and understand their reasonings. As he would then, just like the canon, bestow upon them all potential unlocked, as all their powers would be jumping up. Now, to cover Piccolo, to say the very least, he would be exponential in comparison to the original canon. Jumping up from 1800, 900, he would actually be able to jump quite easily into the 100,000s, roughly 160,000. Now, I know, this is a lot to say, and I've already been giving him a lot of liberties. Trust me, I understand. This seems a bit unrealistic, but you have to understand, this is going on the base of potential, roughly putting him between the potential. Because I assume his potential is a bit higher than Krillin's, but not as potent as, say, Gohan. But having a stronger power level, along with the unlocking it, in addition to the Namekian fusion, I believe this is warranted, and he could jump up into the 100,000s. Dende and Cargo would also get their potentials unlocked, as they would just both learn healing. However, Gohan would also drastically jump, where he was around 2,000, because due to Piccolo training and getting a slight Zenkai from the Saiyan Saga, he would jump up to 18,600 when he's calm. Now, hear what I said, calm. His rage boost will still have to be taken into account later, and that'll be much, much more potent than you think it is, compared to the original canon. To take a slight tangent for a second, I am fully aware, and you guys are all justified in crucifying me in this, about giving Piccolo such a drastic boost in power with the Namekian fusion along with the potential unlock, but I feel it is warranted. His potential along with fusion is quite incredible when you come to think about it. The potential he could have. Now then, once they collected the Dragon Ball, now they'd head back to base camp. Dende and Cargo staying back, as Nail would join the Earthlings, as once they dropped off the Dragon Balls at base camp, they would actually go and approach Frieza's ship, with Piccolo forming multi-clones and firing upon the vessel, luring out numerous amounts of Frieza soldiers, in addition to Frieza himself, who, like in the original canon, would be challenged by Nail, as Nail would actually depart with Frieza, who would leave, thinking he could dispose of him quickly and then come back to dispose of what he considers worms, looking at Gohan and Piccolo, deeming them no threat. Yes, I know this is quite dumb on Frieza's part, and I know it's hard to justify, because why would he leave his ship? But you gotta consider, Frieza in his mind is still the strongest being on the entire planet, if not the universe at the moment. He can hardly believe that these people will be able to contend with the Doria and Zarbon, let alone himself. So he would leave with Nail and decide to play along with their little game, as Piccolo and Gohan would actually have to try to fend off the entire Frieza force, including Doria and Zarbon, like previously mentioned. However, just like the original canon, you could notice something happening with the power levels, as the more they go and stay on Namek, the longer the potentials unlock. Just like Krillin started from 14,000 in the original, jumping all the way to 75,000 at the end of the saga. I believe their power will increase and keep growing, as then Piccolo and Gohan would overwhelm them soon enough and actually be able to dispose of the entire Frieza force on the planet. Having said this, Nail, Nail would not last just like the original canon. He would be brutally beaten to a pulp. He doesn't die just like the canon, but oh my lord, he gets beat. Unbeknownst to Frieza and Nail, the crew would take off with the remaining Dragon Balls and head off, gathering the ones they set off at base camp, and were returning to Gurus just as the Ginyu Force would arrive onto the planet with the scouters in hand, as they would realize Frieza was not back at the ship yet were able to see and track high power levels, so they would go to them. The Ginyu Force would confront Piccolo and Gohan as they'd be departing with the balls, heading back to Gurus. As soon as they got there, they would drop off the balls, just as the Ginyu Force would be upon them. Dende would scurry off with the Dragon Balls to go make the wish, while Gohan and Piccolo would buy him time. This would be a tricky battle, as there would be no Vegeta to aid them. However, Piccolo was far stronger than the original canon Vegeta. After all, his power was in the 100,000s now. Having said this, it still wouldn't be easy, as Gohan would be overwhelmed in these kind of situations. Goldo would initially freeze them, however Piccolo, with his might, would bust through and then quickly decapitate Goldo just like the cannon. Then, Recoome would step up to bat. Piccolo and Recoome would go head toe-to-toe as they commence to batter each other, swinging, hard blows one after the other. They lock their fingers as both envelop themselves in ki, Recoome in a purple ki, as Piccolo's in a white veil of ki, as they lock together, socking each other, and then kicking each other back. Piccolo would fire off a demon wave, as Recoome would fire off a razor gun. However, soon after, just as Recoome attempts to use the Ultra Fighting Bomber, Piccolo, quickly thinking, would strike Recoome hard in the stomach and proceed to knock him out. All the while, Dende would be sneaking off to make the wishes. First, he would wish back Chatsu, as they knew he would not be able to be revived using the Earth Dragon Balls. Actually, speaking of which, with our Earthling fighters on King Kai's planet, let's take a brief tangent to discuss them. As Chatsu, Tien, and Yamcha would be residing on King Kai's planet during this time. It's been a few months at this rate, as they would be training hard upon King Kai's world, just as the wish was made. Now, it'd be interesting to note that they all were picking up on their training and new techniques, all of them, as they would learn, not exactly mastered at this point, but they are picking up the grounds of Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb. However, and also one to note, is that Yamcha, finally, through the suggestion of Tien and hard, rigorous training, has begun to develop his own version of the buff form. Granted, they both prefer to use the slimmer version, but have mastered the full power, bulked up version of it, in case of an emergency. Now, there is still the stamina issue. Having said this, they have not had the same amount of years as as Roshi and Krillin have, but they both have developed their buff forms. However, I do not see Chatsu getting the buff form. While he did pick up a bit on the Kaioken, he would only have ×2, and isn't exactly that great with the Spirit Bomb just yet as compared to Tien and Yamcha. Having said this, they are much more powerful than their original canon, and they could easily dispose of the Ginyu Force at this rate, as their training would continue. Chatsu would be revived, however, he would not immediately leave King Kai's, instead choosing to stay to train with Tien and Yamcha, because he refused to leave Tien behind. So, they would stay. Now, cutting back to Namek. As Piccolo and Gohan would be set to face off against Burter and Jeice, along with Captain Ginyu, a ship would be in the horizon, as they could see it landing, flying down as it would soon land upon the ground. Goku and Krillin have arrived. As steam would emanate off their ship as the hatch opened, two figures emerged. Goku and Krillin walking out, as they would make their way quickly over, flying down, as they brought senzu beans, giving one to each Piccolo and Gohan. Krillin and Goku would be set to face off against Jeice and Burter. As Goku would take on Burter, Krillin would take on Jeice. They both would be rushed by the two red and blue warriors. However, just like how Goku in the original canon could easily blow them away, both of them in unison, far stronger than the original canon selves, blew them both back and began to engage in melee combat. Burter was trying to outspeed Goku, however, to little avail. As well, Krillin was quickly forcing Jeice on the back foot, with brief instances of bulking up, smashing his bulked fist into Jeice, launching him back. Jeice would try to launch a Crusher Ball at Krillin, who would quickly counter it with a Kamehameha, and he blasted him quickly. Jeice would be quickly knocked out, just as Goku would slam his fist into Burter's chest, quickly knocking him out. Now, they're not going to kill him, just like the original. Goku did not want to kill them, and Krillin, while he would have preferred to, he left it aside. Now then, it left only Ginyu, as they would both face off against the captain, and he would quickly be overwhelmed. Now, to give you a range of what their power levels are currently at, Goku, with far stronger training partner, able to keep up with him at this point. He actually was able to jump from 90,000, he jumped all the way 120,000. Krillin, however, would not get the same amount of jump. However, Krillin would find himself resting at 80,000. And I know, this is quite a drastic jump in the original canon. What gives? Well, the gravity training, for one thing. Not to mention, at this point, Krillin with his buff form would be able to keep up relatively well with Goku when he was in Kaioken. And speaking of Kaioken, guess what Krillin picked up on? That's right, Kaioken. Granted, he's not a master at it yet. He can only jump it to ×2 or ×3. Along with this, stacking upon the buff form will cause incredible strain. But when doing this, he will unleash a power that is truly incredible. As he displays it full well against Captain Ginyu, Krillin would briefly jump into his bulked up state and yell Kaioken ×2 and slam his fist firmly into Captain Ginyu's chest, launching him across the horizon. As Goku and him would quickly speed up after the captain, who would attempt to do a body change. However, unlike the original canon, Goku and Krillin were both too fast for him in this set of circumstances, and were able to blitz him and knock him out. Cutting to the planet Earth as we arrive on Kami's lookout, Kami and Mr. Popo have decided it would be in their best interest to go and collect the Dragon Balls to have them all on standby, just in case as the events on Namek were unfolding. Realizing the potential threat Frieza would pose upon them all, Mr. Popo would be sent out, going to look for all 7 and to gather them all. Back on Namek, just in the midst of about to make their second wish, Frieza would arrive quickly upon the scene as he would go to confront these warriors. Currently, he's in his first form, but his first form alone is at 500,000. Having said this, Goku's at 120,000 in base. Him, Krillin, Piccolo, and Gohan would all stare down the tyrants as they would engage in combat. First, Goku would charge him, lighting up into a ×10. As this was going down, Piccolo would quickly depart the battlefield, feeling the defeating power Nail, as he would realize what they might have to do as he would depart to go find the battered, wounded Nail far off on the ground. Realizing that Nail had not much time, Nail would implore Piccolo to fuse with him so they can defeat that bastard Frieza once and for all. Piccolo, though hesitant still, having already fused prior, has decided he had no choice but to fuse with Nail, realizing this may be their only hope in case this Kaioken fails Goku. Now, where exactly would Piccolo place, as opposed to his original canon self, as we never truly got an official power level when he left King Kai's world in the original canon, being revived. Now, many people assume, or at the very least bet, that he somehow reached into the 100,000s to be around Ginyu level, or so this power of the Namekian multipliers are quite drastic, to say the very least. I truly do not know what his power level was. Having said this, I placed him into the 100,000s, so I will guesstimate. I am unsure truly what the multiplier is when he had with Nail, but Nail is far stronger than the 3 Namekian warriors, so the multiplier is going to be far stronger than a 5 times. Now, I could be crazy, and I can say some ridiculous numbers. I truly don't know. I am just going to guesstimate, and if it's wrong, I do apologize, and we'll try to title it, try to tweak it. I'm going to say it's roughly a 20 times multiplier when he got with Nail. And this would jump him just around 3 million. I know this is a bit crazy. Let me try to justify myself here before someone comments. Nail is a far stronger warrior. Even in dying, he'd be far above what the original Namekians were, who fused with Piccolo here. Piccolo is far stronger from what I'm aware of. So, yes, he did not have King Kai's training, but being implored with 3 Namekian fusions and his potential lock, I do believe this is comparable, if not more. Having said that, we cut back to the scene as Piccolo would quickly rush to the battlefield just as Frieza began to transform to a second form, with Goku going toe-to-toe with him in times 10. And soon after, Krillin would have to jump in, just as Frieza jumps to his third form. Both of them stared at each other, as Goku would briefly jump in the times 20 alongside Krillin, who bulked up and jumped into a times 2, as they both smash into Frieza together. However, Frieza would quickly swat them down for a moment, just as Piccolo comes to the scene, far stronger and able to hold off third form Frieza at bay to give Goku and Krillin time. The Grand Elder Guru's life force began to fade. He was unsure how much longer he can hold. As opposed to the original canon, he held much longer, knowing that the Earthlings need more time. So he forced himself to stay alive as much as possible, through a little healing by Cargo, who stayed back with the Guru. Dende, realizing all the fighters need as much help as they can for the second wish, just as Guru was about to die, would wish for all their heroes to have their health restored, which means everyone's back to 100%, including Goku and Gohan, who now both have Zenkais, meaning there is no use of the healing pod, as now Goku, far stronger, is able to contend with Frieza again. I would like to equate that Frieza's beating should be comparable to the beating that Ginyu in Goku's body got dealt by Vegeta, if not far worse, compared to what Frieza can possibly do to Goku with mortal wounds and such. So, I know this is going to be crazy me saying this, but with the Wish and the Zenkai, he might be able to jump back to the 5 million just like in the original canon. If not actually above it, because he's actually stronger than the original canon. He might actually tip the scales further. Might be a 5.1 million. But I will keep him at 5 million just for now. Let's not get overboard. Having said this, with this Kaioken times 20, he would then face off against Frieza, who began to transform once more. Our heroes would be in trouble, as they would not be able to contend with Final Form Frieza as easily as the prior. Having said this, Goku still had a plan, what he can do. The Spirit Bomb. He knew Piccolo was strong, and he knew Krillin was strong. So what he would do was he would slip Krillin the remaining senzu bean he had, as recall that Vegeta was not here with them like the original canon, so that bean was never used for Vegeta. He would slip into Krillin's hand and tell them he needs to help fend off Frieza as much as he can as he goes to plan on the Spirit Bomb. Goku would head off, commencing the bomb, as Gohan, Piccolo, and Krillin would all step up to Final Form Frieza. Krillin especially trying to push himself as much as possible to give Goku as much time as possibly needed, even pushing his Kaioken meter further and further than he expected himself to. Krillin bulks up once more, Kaioken Veil flaring up, not times 2, not times 3. He would jump to times 4 and charge Frieza with all his might. Piccolo would turn into the giant Namekian form and begin to fire upon Frieza, Gohan with his rage. Now, I would love to sit here and tell you that they can beat Frieza, but they cannot. But what they're doing is serving as a distraction. Krillin would be serving up as a distraction, and then when his stamina began to drop, he would down a senzu bean and quickly be reinvigorated as he charges at Frieza once more. Soon after, Goku would be finished with the Spirit Bomb as he flings it upon the tyrant, just as our three heroes who were defending him were beaten into near unconsciousness, laying on the ground. The bomb would engulf Frieza as it would be sent crashing into the planet Namek. Was this the end? Who knew? As our heroes slowly struggled to get back up on their feet, they look amongst one another, laughing to themselves as if they were done. Only then, the tyrant re-emerged and fired upon Piccolo with a death beam. Goku, Krillin, and Gohan would all be frightened and shocked by this revelation as Piccolo collapses on the ground. Gohan would scream out just like in the original canon, and Krillin, now unpowered and panting out of breath, would look on in fear as soon he would become Frieza's next target, being lifted into the air. Unfortunately, just like the original canon, Krillin would pass away, as he would be killed by Lord Frieza as he exploded within the air, as Goku would then turn into the Super Saiyan, stronger than the original canon, as he does battle with Frieza. However, in the midst of this, the Earth Dragon Balls would be used to revive everyone on Namek currently, including Guru. For the second wish at the moment, it would be used to transfer everyone off Namek except Goku and Frieza, as everyone else escaped. Just like the original canon, Goku would end up defeating Frieza as he would escape on a ship heading off to Yardrat like the original canon. Yamcha would be making his way down to Snake Way, just as Krillin would be making his way to King Kai's to wait out 3 months until he could be revived with the others. And I know what you're thinking, why doesn't he just immediately get revived with the third wish? Well, he would choose not to, deciding that this would be a prime opportunity to get stronger, as he realized what occurred on Namek was reality, that he was not strong enough to contend with Frieza and these baddies, and in order to do so, he would need to train even harder. And staying dead to train with Tien and Chaozu in the other world might be the best chance he got on King Kai's. Having said this, this is the end of the scenario for part 3. Part 4 will be coming sooner or later. I hope you guys appreciate this part. I know it took a while, trust me, believe me, I know. You know, college got me busy, just getting my associate's degree right now. It took me a while, but after a while, I just want to say I'm glad to be back, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for part 4, because that'll come sooner or later. Peace!